Next year, all our troubles will be out of sight. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Make the Yuletide gay. Next year, all our troubles will be miles away. Once again, as in olden days, happy golden days of yours. Faithful friends who are dear to us will be near to us once more. Someday soon we all will be together if the fates allow. Until then, we'll have to muddle through somehow. So have yourself a merry little Christmas now.
Hey, the internet. I hope that you're having a Merry Christmas. My name is Mitch, and I'm one of the pastors here at Suncrest. I am excited that you've decided to check us out online this holiday. In fact, if this is your first time checking out a Suncrest On-Demand video, I want to say thanks. Thanks for giving us a shot. Thanks for being willing to try something new. We know there's lots of things that might be at the forefront of your attention this season, but we think it's a big deal that you're watching this video. And because of that, we'd love to give you a little Christmas gift. Go ahead and text the word Suncrest to the number 94,000. Someone on our team is on the other side of that text thread and will send you a digital gift card just for letting us know you're watching. Boom. Merry Christmas. I want you to know something before we get going. Everything we do is aimed at helping all of us focus more on Jesus. So, from the messages we learn, the guided experiences we'll have in this video, the music we'll hear, and the generosity we'll share together, and everything in between, all of it is aimed at helping us focus on Jesus during a busy, busy season. Speaking of generosity, one of the ways that you can be part of making a huge difference in Northwest Indiana is by partnering with us financially in what we call our compassion offering. Every year we do this, and every dollar that's donated from now until midnight on Christmas Eve is earmarked to go directly back into our community. You know, it's just one of the ways that we are for the region together. You can set up a one-time gift or maybe even set up a recurring gift either on our app or our website. And while you're doing that, take a look at this.
It takes a village. Sure, to raise a child, but also to make a difference, to change the future, to make love known. And we are that village. That village that bands together to change the lives of 5 families for generations with Habitat for Humanity. That village that offers care to the over 60 families of the Down Syndrome Association of Northwest Indiana. That village that equips a place like Sojourner Truth House to serve over 20,000 women and children with food, essentials, and hope. That village that sends 200 people into the community, that packages 500 meals for Thanksgiving, that builds walls to homes for families in need. We are that village. Or better yet, a city on a hill. A city touched by light. A city touched by the love of God. A city that can't be hidden. And the thing about it is that you are that village. You are that city. You are touched by the love of God. And once you've been touched by that love, it can't help but be shared. So, let's keep going. When you partner with us financially during Christmas at Suncrest, 100% of your donation goes right back into our community to change the trajectory of families in need, to lift up people with hope, to be used by God to change lives.
Thanks for partnering with us and using your finances to change lives. It really means a lot to us. Right now, I'm going to turn things over to our lead pastor, Greg, as he walks us through a super practical and hopefully super meaningful message as part of our series, The Thrill of Peace.
Thrill, a sudden experience of excitement, the sparkle in a child's eye, connection at family gatherings, the closing of a tired year, and the hope of a new one. We all want a thrill. The thrills we chase most holidays are a fleeting experience that flashes bright and leave us wanting more. What if, instead, we felt the thrill of peace?
So this past Sunday, after our services were done, I went with my family and we went over to the courthouse in Crown Point. Our youngest is 3 years old, and it was time for him to get the chance to go sit on Santa's lap, take a picture, all those sorts of things. And so we did. We stood in the line, and he went up and he told Santa and Mrs. Claus all the things that he wanted. We got some great pictures, and we moved on with our day. And then last night, our family decided to take a trip down to Harvest Time, down by Lowell, where all the lights are, and you drive through. Some of you may have done this, and it was a great experience. We drive in, and as you drive up, you get the chance to roll down your window because Santa is right there. And I roll down the window, that my 3-year-old who's sitting right behind me here, and Santa comes up to the window and says, "Oh, young man, Merry Christmas. What do you want for Christmas this year?" And my son said, "I already told you." It was awesome. And Santa, because Santa's smart, said, "You know what? Sometimes I just have trouble remembering." And it just made me think for a moment, don't we all sometimes just have trouble remembering? Yes, the little things of life, but many times the big things of life. And it's one of the things about the Christmas story. I like to be creative when I present things, but there's no use trying to be creative with the Christmas story. Joseph is not taking Mary to Bethlehem in a Tesla this year. That's not happening. This is the same story, a story that has stood the test of time, a story that has shaped the civilization we live in more than any other story over the last 2 millennia. And so tonight, as we reflect on this story a little bit together, I think the right posture is just to let it serve to help us remember. I don't know what your experiences with God have been. I don't know what they've been this week. I don't know if they've been absent for many years. I don't know if you even feel like you have something you could reach back to. But on the night that Christ came into the world, something magnificent happened. Joseph and Mary had made their way to Bethlehem because a census was being taken of the entire Roman world. They got into town and there wasn't any space for them to stay. And then on that night, outside of town, came the first whimper of the baby Jesus, the Christ child, the Son of God. And I don't know if it happened immediately in that moment, but the scriptures describe for us what happened then off to the side on a hillside where shepherds were watching their flocks at night. There was a cosmic announcement that was made, and this is how it went. Suddenly, a great company of the heavenly hosts appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth, peace. Now, if you've been with us over the last few weeks, you know I've read this passage all 3 weeks of this series where we've been talking about the thrill of peace. And we've had the chance to reflect about how if Christ came and brought peace to this world, those of us who are followers of Jesus ought to be bringing peace to the world around us. But we've reserved the message about each of us receiving peace from God for this night. And I want all of you to know tonight that this is a very earthy peace. Much has been written, of course, about the moment that Christ came into the world. It's the first time that God himself had taken on human form and come to be with us. In the song, "O Holy Night," which we'll listen to and sing together with a little bit later on to candlelight, it talks about this moment and it says, it was this moment that the soul felt its worth. And Jesus himself later on would help us to see that the reason he came into the world was that so each of us could see who God truly is. That if you know Jesus and if you have seen Jesus, it means that you know God and have seen God. And one of the things I try to remind our church about all the time is that if you have a view of God, a picture of God that is different than your picture of Jesus, you should dismiss the initial view of God. Because whoever Jesus was, that is who God is. Now, after a long night of labor, Mary had started to see shepherds making their way to come and celebrate this child. And after the whole event is over, Luke, a physician who's writing this biography of Jesus, gives us this picture at the end of the night. He says, Mary treasured up all these things and she pondered them. Now, Mary had had a longer runway than everybody else. For 9 months now, she had known something significant was happening. But it was on this night, a magical night, a mystical night, a spiritual night, that she had the chance to step back and reflect and think about everything that was happening. And maybe for just a few minutes tonight, we could share in that pondering. Mary knew that the child that had come from her was going to bring peace. And I think she knew, maybe we need to be reminded tonight that peace in our lives has a couple of elements to it that are actually counterintuitive. Maybe as a young teenage girl, Mary herself had wanted peace. And she had chased it, trying to grab it here, or chased it wanting there. But whenever you chase peace, it's always elusive. You see, the very nature of peace from God is not that we go and get it, but that it comes to us and we receive it. The only way any of us will ever truly find peace is actually in the surrendered life by giving up. And the other thing about peace in this life is that so often we reach for a peaceful experience, or we want a peaceful feeling. We understand that they're temporary and they're just part of life, but we'll never truly experience peace in this life unless we have that peace from God himself, the one who transcends everything. And I have to imagine that because Mary was a faithful young Jewish girl, that when it says she pondered these things in her heart, her mind probably went to one of the most beautiful and compelling promises from the Old Testament that Christ would come into the world. This is what it says in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6. It says, "For to us a child is born, and to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." And I think on this night when the angels announced there would be peace on earth, and where Mary had a moment to step back in peacefulness to ponder everything that happened in her heart, her mind would have remembered that her Christ child was coming as the Prince of Peace, and that maybe these 4 descriptors are arranged in such a way that the first 3 teach us how to find the last one. So, just as a simple reminder this Christmas, let me encourage you with this. I think this is the Christmas reminder that we need. We can truly find peace because when our situations are chaotic, there is a wonderful counselor. Now, I don't know whether your situation is chaotic right now, whether life feels like chaos to you, whether you've made plans that did not come to fruition, whether you have relationships that aren't as settled as you wish they were. Maybe your life is not chaotic right now, but if your situation is chaotic, I want you to remember this Christmas that our peace comes because God is a wonderful counselor. And when Jesus came into the world, he became that wonderful counselor for us. And if we go around this scattered life with chaotic situations and broken relationships and mental health that feels unsettled, it is a chance actually for us to step back and say, but God, you sent us a wonderful counselor. The word wonderful here is actually two pieces of the same word. Maybe you could think of it like this. It's a wonder-filled counselor. It's the counselor who gets up above this world and can see things that you can't see. If you would open yourself to the idea that God knows you better than you know yourself, and that God knows your future in a way that you can't see or anticipate right now, and that God is in control of things that we are not in control of. And if we could take our closed hands and open them up and say, God, your way. When Jesus would become a teacher in this world, he was a wonderful counselor. He would tell you that if you're angry or if you've been wronged, the right move is to forgive. And it wasn't a heavy-handed commandment. He was counseling you as to how you could find peace. He would come across people who were dealt a terrible hand. Maybe that's your situation. And he would observe those sometimes, and once he said, why did this happen? It happened so that the work of God could be on display in this situation. And then he brought healing to a situation. I don't have a way to lead you to peace without connecting you to the wonderful counselor that Christ is. I can promise you that if you'll take some quiet moments every day and listen for his voice, that the same God who sent his Son into the world will listen to you and prompt you with his Spirit and guide you. And he will be with you. Because when Christ came into the world, it was Emmanuel, God with us. And Christ's final words before leaving this earth, he said, lo, I will be with you always to the very end of the age. If your situation is chaotic in any way, there is a wonderful counselor that came at Christmas. There's other situations when our strength is waning. There is a mighty God. He was wonderful counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. And maybe your strength isn't waning this season, but maybe it is. Maybe you reach down and used to be able to reach down and there was always something there that you could hold on to, but these days you reach down and you're not sure that there's anything there. You feel your knees buckling, you're maybe trying to put on your best face, but it doesn't feel like strength, inner strength, is the story of your life. And if that's the story for you, I just want you to know that's actually the path to peace. To put the weight of the world on your shoulders was never intended for you. To realize that there is a God who is over everything, who carries our burdens, is everything. This is kind of an old reference, but there was a popular poem probably 30 or 40 or 50 years ago called Footprints in the Sand. Maybe some of you are familiar with it. It's a very simple concept. The idea is that, hey, someone's walking out there with Jesus, goes through a tough time in life in the sand, and then there's only one set of footprints in the sand. And in the end, the image is that it says Christ carried you during that difficult time. I once came across a poem. It was called Butt Prints in the Sand. And basically the theory on this one is, at those times, God had to drag your sorry rear end through the sand. But as cheesy or old or cliche as footprints in the sand might seem in today's world, the idea behind it is true. That when you feel like you can't go on, that when you realize you're not strong enough, when you feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, there's a mighty God who will carry you. And sometimes I think the situation is when our schedules are overwhelming. And by schedules overwhelming, I don't mean that you're just busy. I mean, everybody's busy, right? I mean that maybe you find yourself in a situation where you've arranged your life, as many people do, to pack everything in and create great intensity. And then when you actually look at what you're accomplishing, it's actually things that aren't all that meaningful. And then you miss out on the most important parts of life, of faith with God and relationships with one another. And I just want you to know, if you find yourself in kind of an overwhelming schedule, that Christmas reminds us that Jesus is actually an everlasting Father. Every time we're prone to focus on today and tomorrow and the next day, the Christmas story will lift our eyes up to say, but what about forever? And every time we're prone to focus on things and tasks and accomplishments and achievements, the Christmas story lifts up our eyes and says, but what about your Father? That Christ himself comes as an everlasting Father. A reminder that not only is the afterlife real, it matters so far beyond what this life holds. And that God is not a being or a force, but a Father who loves you and forgives you and carries you. And I just think Christmas is the perfect time to lift our eyes up, to say, this is the Son who is given to us, a wonderful counselor, a mighty God, an everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. And after Isaiah writes that in Isaiah 9:6, this is how he finishes it in Isaiah 9:7. Of the greatness of his government and peace, there will be no end. My friends, this is my prayer for you this Christmas. That there will be no end to your peace. That your life with God, your faith in him, gives you an infinite supply to walk through the troubles, the pressures, the difficulties of life, and to know that God is with you.
Each week, we make time both online and in person to experience communion. This is a time to celebrate and be grateful for the love of Jesus, and maybe experience peace with and from God. So, feel free to grab some food and drink right now to represent Jesus' body and his blood, and we'll reflect on his love together. we're going to do something really special now. Every year, Christians from all over the globe stop and light candles to represent Jesus' coming into the world. A light of hope, a light of peace in a dark world. So, just like you grabbed food and drink a moment ago, take a moment now and grab a candle, and it doesn't have to be anything special, and light it with us as we celebrate the light of the world coming to be with us. Thanks for joining us for Christmas at Suncrest On-Demand. I hope it's been meaningful to you and meaningful to the people you shared this with. And in fact, if you haven't shared this yet, before you turn off this video, be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and the share button. And From all of us here at Suncrest to you and your family, Merry Christmas.